TLDR.
Huh?
Salutations, gamers. I'm Provi the Plant, back at it again with a showcase video of Provi's Origins. I wonder who made that one. An Origins add-on that adds 9 origins and a bunch of additional stuff like particles, power types, etc. Each origin could easily be given its own 5 to 7 minute explanation, but that would be cringe. So here's a quick summary of each of them while I make vague attempts at humour. It's the Homunculus, a side grade to the human. As a Homunculus, villagers are both useless to you and hostile. Villagers won't trade with you, and iron golems will flock to you like suzerain fans to a crying emoji. Homunculi don't get to benefit from casual human rights violations, and instead have to play the game as intended, leveraging their increased experience gain to actually use the enchantment table. Being an optimized human, they hunger faster, and have increased movement speed. Splash potions also don't affect you, but that's for you to decide whether or not it's a buff. Okay, so admittedly, this only exists because the Elytrian gets instantly power crept the second you consider mod packs. The Drakling has similar conditions to the Elytrian. Permanent Elytra, can't wear armor stronger than chainmail, more funny damage. But the Drakling differs in that it can actually craft its chainmail armor. The Drakling is also immune to fire damage, never learned how to swim, and has a stamina bar for its flight. However, if you wear a dragon head, you get a pleasant and not at all terrifying magical girl transformation sequence, turning you into the Drake. This is the evolved form of a Drakling. The Drake trades its armor restriction for a reduction in armor effectiveness. It's taller, can fly indefinitely even without fireworks, and players can ride on your back until you force them to learn how to MLG.
Huh?
Full disclosure, I made this before I read Lost Belt 6. The Faerie Moth is intended for a support playstyle. It may not be particularly strong by itself, but it enables its allies to deal goofy amounts of damage. You gain access to a resource called Fairy Dust. It drains over time, especially in sunlight, but restores when near certain fiery light sources such as torches and campfires. And if you're holding a torch or a lantern or a special cosmetic lantern, which also works that you gain the ability to craft, then your Fairy Dust will also regain over time. Using Fairy Dust, you can gain additional mid-air jumps. You can share strength, speed, and regeneration effects with allies, specifically the effects that you already have. If you drink an 8-minute strength potion, then use the power, you will grant your 8 minutes of strength to all your nearby friends. And lastly, your critical hits apply a 3-hit League of Legends passive. It lets you lie like Vortigern, putting the target to sleep for a few seconds. Sleep here is a new status condition that just forcefully turns off the game. A sleeping player cannot move, see, deal damage, break blocks, and if they take damage, they get woken up, but the damage that did so deals double. The Faerie Moth takes no fall damage, can sneak to gain slow fall. It's so absolutely minuscule, microscopic even, that it can crouch under a single block. Trigonometry said this is a PvP buff. The drawbacks are fairly simple. Vegetarianism is mandatory, your limp little noodle arms make you deal less melee damage, you've got less hearts, and fire burns you for twice as much. The Alraune, not that one, is focused on defense. Tower defense. The core of the Alraune is to pick flowers and weaponize them. By expending your life sap resource, flowers can be converted into small turrets that help you in combat. Depending on the flower, you summon a turret that either damages enemies, shoots arrows at them, pushes them away, or pulls them in. These all become far stronger once you free the end. The Alraune relies on biome-specific territorial advantage with its flowers. Reading comprehension is your friend here. The Alraune is bulky. It's the only origin in here that actually gains more hearts. It's slightly taller than the average player. Like most plants, the Alraune requires a suitable environment to thrive and not instantly kill itself. Being in biomes that are too hot will slowly dehydrate and eventually ignite the player. Drinking water, becoming moist, or standing in the shade will mitigate this. You also take double fire damage to have fun with this. As you might guess from a plant, you are vegan, which for plants means you are now a raging carnivore that has to consume as many animals as possible to stay alive. And lastly, you hit like a sponge in melee. You can strike through tall grass and other plants though, as long as you aren't sneaking. The completely original and unique idea that builds up the Crystalliser is to alternate between a bruiser and a glass cannon. Literally. You have a resource called Crystal Shards. Every time you crit an enemy, take damage or kill, you gain some shards, but they also drain over time. You can spend some of your shards to regain 2 hearts, which is what enables your bruiser playstyle. Alternatively, if you save the entire bar, you can expend it all at once to summon a small crystal that floats above your head, and rapidly shoots particle beams at the closest enemy in range. If you have the Free the End achievement, you get 2 particle beams, and the second one goes towards the farthest away enemy, in the same range. The Crystalliser is supposed to be a sentient end crystal, so, like Enderman, you take damage from water. But, definitely unlike end crystals, you take greatly reduced explosion damage. Crystal PvP is good actually, and you should strive to blow things up. You also can't use bows because you are supposed to rely on that laser. Before we continue, I just want you to know 0% of my viewers are actually subscribed. Keep it that way. Local man puts his VTuber lore in Minecraft a whole year before actually making a channel. It's so much funnier if I just list all the debuffs first. You exhaust 50% faster, but you also can't eat food, and you also can't drink potions, and you have no maidens, and splash potions don't work on you either, and you can't breathe in the nether. Bees blind you if they get too close, and also fire does double damage. Lily of the Void gameplay revolves around picking flowers purely so you can eat them. It's what all the sane people do. Floral mimicry is the primary mechanic of the lily. Certain plant-based items can be consumed to grant a buff for a short duration. This mechanic is what replaces food and potions. Only one mimicry can be active at a time, but flowers are easier to acquire than potions. So, the lily has a far easier access to status effects, but can't stack or amplify them like you can with potions. Some mimicries grant you status effects, some let you inflict status effects, some modify attributes. There's a table for this, it's pretty involved. Bees will also give you saturation when nearby. If you're in the end, or near certain void-related blocks, you gain a refreshing strength, speed, water breathing, and saturation. This is the only way, by the way, for Lily to access strength. This origin plays very heavily around its Death's Vice resource. It's a balance between being vaguely amphibious and vaguely doki doki waku waku necromantic. You gain DV when near soul fires or holding soul lanterns. Just like with the moth, you can craft a special cosmetic unplaceable lantern to help you out with this. Killing enemies or consuming certain items with one of your active keys will restore some of your DV. When Death's Vice reaches the darkened section of the bar, you're inflicted with a refreshing weakness and slowness. But if you let it reach 0, you also get treated to a refreshing darkness. This actually isn't as bad as it sounds though, because if you're standing on coarse dirt and you kill an undead, then you can convert that coarse dirt into soul sand. This is your early game priority so that you can actually get your first soul lantern. The Kraken of Decay, the pianist that it is, has 4 active keys. The first lets you squirt ink to propel yourself forwards. You'll find that this is far stronger in the water. The second lets you fire an armor-penetrating beam of Doki Raku to steal life from an opponent. The third lets you consume the soul items to recharge your DV. This is the ability that was mentioned earlier. And fourth, you can pull your target towards you and slow them down. Additionally, if Death Spice is up to the final bar, you will gain particles around you to warn opponents, and your attacks will inflict wither for a very small DD cost. However, like a basement dweller in his prime, you thrive on salt. Despite being able to breathe on both land and sea, you will take damage when in fresh water. DV will protect you from this, until it doesn't. Rivers, bad. Lakes, bad. Hotel, depends on the biome. Oceans, good. Also, you are mandatorily pescatarian, but without the vegetables. Yes, this actually uses the vibration system. Wool is your enemy. This origin is min-maxed for exploration, at an almost complete disregard for combat. The Jelly Sculk takes no fall damage, has a double jump, and can slow fall at will. However, it has Warden Vision. It can only detect living entities through vibrations, with a couple notable exceptions like ghasts and bosses. And yes, you can't see things that are behind wool, or players that are sneaking. The Jelly Sculk acts similarly to a catalyst, and will spread Sculk veins when gaining experience. This is good actually, and you should aim to grief your friends with it. Mostly because you gain speed on Sculk, and if you're not on Sculk, you have darkness. The Jelly Sculk in specific does not have a pulsing darkness effect, it is static. Pulsing darkness would be extremely oppressive otherwise. Experience is your resource. By shift right-clicking a block, you can convert it into Sculk. If it was already Sculk, you now have a Sculk sensor. This effectively expands your detection range because you can detect the vibrations from the Sculk sensors too. You can also insta-mine Sculk blocks. Combine these abilities at your leisure, it's rather hilarious. Lastly, you rather predictably don't make vibrations. This is not the same as that weak source Velvet Pause ability. This is vibration occlusion. Minecraft will simply refuse to allow a vibration to have you as its owner. So even in edge cases, like breaking a double block, you are not the owner of the produced vibration, and it cannot trigger Sculk sensors. You ever played Guild Wars 2? There's a class called the Mesmer. I took it, and I put it in Minecraft. The Splinter is the ultimate glass cannon. Survival is a simple matter of killing your opponent before they figure out which of your elite goons is actually you. Splinter gameplay revolves around summoning and managing clones. Clones are like tamed wolves, skinwalking as their owner. They fight for you, follow you, and can be sat down like a fool. Your secondary ability activates your Banned from Smogon double team move. It creates illusory copies of you and your clones, blinds nearby enemies, and makes you outright untargetable to mobs. To misdirect your opponents, you have your tertiary ability. It lets you instantly swap places with the clone you're looking at, or if you're sneaking, the farthest away clone. The Splinter only has 5 hearts, and you can't use a shield or deal critical hits. But as long as you're not a little cringe baby, you can take down most opponents with just a bow and a sword. I made a lot of power types, action types, etc. to make this mod. There's a wiki on my GitHub repo, so data packers can also make use of these and make things that I didn't think of. Also, for dependencies, obviously you're going to need origins, but for the optimal experience, you'll also want Pekri, Pakui. And you'll also want extra DE Origins add-on, which just adds more entity groups and funny enchantments so that you can have different swords for each of your friends' heads. Imagine actually writing an outro